Hi, everybody. My name is Haley Reuter, and the case that I chose to look at for my case brief is Tinker versus Des Moines. So the full case name is actually Tinker versus Des Moines Independent Community School District, and Tinker was the plaintiff in this case, and Des Moines was the defendant. So for the cause of action, John Tinker and Mary Beth Tinker's parents filed a lawsuit against Des Moines School District for violating their children's freedom of speech and sought an injunction to prevent the school district from disciplining the students. So a little background about the case and just the facts that went into it. So in December 1965, a group of adults and students gathered at a house and determined to publicize their objections to the events in Vietnam by wearing black armbands in support of a truce. However, the principals of Des Moines School heard about this plan and came up with a policy that stated any student wearing an armband to school would be asked to remove it. However, if they refused, they would be suspended. So on December 16th, Mary Beth and Christopher wore black armbands to school, and John Tinker wore the armband the next day. They were all sent home and suspended until they would come back without the armbands. The complaint was filed through their fathers and prayed for an injunction restraining the respondent school officials. Now, a little bit about how this case came to the Supreme Court and the courts that it went to in the earlier stages. So the complaint was filed first to the United States District Court, which was a federal court. However, it was dismissed as they ruled it upheld the constitutionality of the school authorities' action on school grounds to prevent disturbance of school discipline. The complaint was then appealed and brought to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit. The Court of Appeals was equally divided in their decision, therefore, the ruling of the district court was left in place. The case was then appealed again to the U.S. Supreme Court, which ultimately overturned the lower court's rulings. So, some of the issues that were involved within this case were: does wearing symbolic protest armbands with no disruptive behavior in school fall under the protection of the students' First Amendment rights? The next one is, are First Amendment rights, including free speech, available to both teachers and students in the public school environment? And the last one is, can the Des Moines Public Schools suppress or censor student speech or expression if it does not disrupt the educational process or invade the rights of others? So the holdings that they got from these issues and they found within the cases was that the students' conduct was within the protection of the free speech clause of the First Amendment. So they were protected by the free speech clause. Second one was that, yes, the First Amendment rights are available to both teachers and students. And lastly, they found that the Des Moines Public School cannot suppress or censor student speech or expression if it does not disrupt the educational process or invade the rights of others. So for the reasoning that the court ruled these holdings, so the first one, they found that the wearing of the armband for the purpose of expressing certain views was considered a symbolic act and that it is within the free speech clause of the First Amendment. So the court had cited legal precedents such as West Virginia versus Barnett and Stromberg versus California, and this allowed them to come to the decision that wearing the armbands was entirely divorced from actually or potentially disruptive conduct, and it was closely akin to pure speech. Number two, so they had decided that for many years before, there's been a holding in court that neither students nor teachers shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate. For example, in Meyer versus Nebraska and Bartels versus Iowa, these held that the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment prevents states from forbidding the teaching of foreign language to young students. Therefore, it is unconstitutional to interfere with the liberty of teachers, students, and parents. Lastly, for number 3, they had found that if a school could make a reasonable prediction that the speech would cause disruption to the discipline and educational function of the school, then schools may limit or censor the speech. However, in this case, they had ended up finding that no evidence that the armbands would interfere with the educational environment or with other students' rights. So, in all, the rule of law that was found from this important case is that it established that the First Amendment protections are extended to students in public schools. Additionally, any schools or educational authorities that want to suppress or censor student speech need to show that allowing the speech would interfere with the school's function or other students' rights.